Warning. This show features dark subjects which may be triggering to some listeners. Listener discretion is advised. Welcome to Chaos Jar. I'm J Wes Secord, the loud and obnoxious one. Hey! Over here is our big bag of facts, Bad Ben.
Hey!
It's almost a tongue twister there.
Just a big bag of facts, Bad Ben.
Yeah, it's like an alliteration, right?
He sells by the seashore.
Shut up! I'm trying to introduce the last guy. And, as usual, AT Token. Anyway, back to the alliteration. I know, it sounds amazing with all the B's.
Yeah, it really does.
No, but seriously, as always, we're here with our good friend AT Token.
Hello.
Now that he's done talking...
For the episode.
We can continue on. So, give us our cleanup there. House cleaning. That's
all
the
right.
word.
So follow us on Instagram and on Twitter at BAChaosJar and at I'm Glad You Asked _.
That's me.
You can ask us questions. I post the show notes and all that kind of stuff through it. And you can actually engage in our content a little bit and try and grow the community. You can follow us on...
Create a community, please. Yeah. We need to sound like we're cool.
We just need friends.
We just need friends. We're the worst cult ever.
Do you want to be friends? You don't have to worship Satan or anything. Just
a secret for all of you. We just sit around this table telling stories all day. That's it. We have no other lives.
Like, literally, our partition is a couple of board games.
And instead of playing the board games, we decide that I tell you guys terrible stories.
Yeah, and we have King of Tokyo in New York here, and some 1 week Ultimate Werewolf, and we could be playing these if we were sponsored or something.
Yeah. Well, speaking of sponsors, if you want to, sponsor us and become an executive producer, you can, pledge some money at Patreon.
It's a good segue.
Real simple.
That was really
I have mastered this. Cheap plugs.
Oh my god.
But yeah, it's in the show notes. Patreon. Patreon.com/Pandora Jar Podcast.
Why do I think Cheap Plugs is going to be our sponsor?
We're sponsored by Cheap Plugs.
CheapPlugs.com.
Get all your great anal plugs here.
Some waste for your waste.
They're just oddly warped. And it's like, no, that's for pleasure.
Sure.
I don't see how the fish hook is a pleasure.
Yeah. Gets the P spot, right?
It really brings that pleasure around.
Yeah. Like a good segue.
The boomerang plug.
Speaking of bad segues, what's going in the jar today?
Well, instead of me introducing that, how about you just read this nursery rhyme that I just sent you?
I'm glad you asked.
Now, you just have to read it like a normal person,
I'm glad I'm not listening. What was that? Okay,
Yeah, we'll see.
Half a pound of tuppenny rice, half a pound of treacle. That's the way the money goes. Pop goes the weasel. Every night when I go out, the monkey's on the table. Take a stick and knock it off. Pop goes the weasel. Up and down the city road, in and out the eagle. That's the way the money goes. Pop goes the weasel. So like that?
Yeah.
Yes, as an 18th century debt collector.
I would love that debt collector. I would pay him.
Yeah. We'll sick his monkey on you.
Well, he's
beating the shit out of every day.
Well, yeah. Only when it's on the table.
What do you think monkeys do? I don't know, actually. So.
What do you think? Let's ask
I
Bernard.
imagine it would be on the table.
We need to talk to Bernard about this.
Well, I'm not quite sure. I am a rock ape. We're quite large, and we don't really have access to tables.
You stand on rocks.
Well, obviously, but that's just so uncouth. Barbaric.
You uncultured swine.
I would rather throw the rock.
Yeah, like a
Just letting this go.
like a grenade.
like a grenade.
All right. So we know this nursery rhyme in a lot of different forms.
Jack in the Box.
Well, there's a whole tie into this. That's the reason I did that. Thanks.
I'm just rooting it.
Yeah. But no, we know it in different forms. Like one of the other adaptations is running around a cobbler's house, running around a chicken coop, like a possum chasing a weasel around a chicken coop. And we also know the one about the mulberry bush.
That's the one I was thinking about.
Yeah.
I don't.
You don't?
No.
Like all around the mulberry bush, the monkey chased the weasel. The monkey thought it was all in fun. Pop goes the weasel.
I get the idea. It's not complicated. I've just never heard it before.
So
That's honestly probably more interesting than what we're about to hear. Like, how do you not? No offense.
Grew up in a small town with a xenophobic dad. Limited cultural references.
I guess it's just culturally so ingrained in our society. Like, even after you escape that home, like, how do you not hear it?
Because I went up north, where there's even less culture.
That's how. Fuck off.
and just like that one person listening in Nineveh in their igloo was like, "Fuck this guy."
Not that north. Northern Ontario. Fuck you guys.
Whoa. We are not going up there. I'll have none of it, okay?
All right. So just as
I will
the
hit you. Totally not Canada.
there's totally going to be some violence today. This is going to happen.
I got the box cutter.
Oh. Did you just cut your drink?
No, the drink's gone.
Okay.
But it just, wow, it's so nice to have them. The razors new. They just slide right. Anyway, so your story.
Something else to play for the trial later on.
Yeah. So, like I said, it's evolved. Like the words and lyrics and all that have evolved over time and based on region. So have the interpretations of the rhyme. So, like, it's thought that the weasel can refer to an alcoholic drink or a hatter tool. One of the hatter tools is known as like a dead weasel.
Okay.
That is amazing.
It's thought that the monkey on the table could be an old term for a monkey on your house, which was like a lien or a loan or a mortgage on your house. So knock it off is,
Pay off the bills.
Yeah, paying it off and getting it taken off. And it's even thought that the pop of the weasel could be slang for pawning things. So being so far in debt that you're paying things out and pawning them off in order to pay the bills to get that monkey off the table.
So freery as hell.
Wow. These nursery rhymes are getting a little bit more in depth than I remember them being.
But it could also go a little bit further than that. They could be pawning it off for booze, because the eagle that's mentioned in the third verse, up and down the city road is London, and along the main city road is an old English tavern known as the Eagle Tavern.
Oh.
How the hell would anyone know that?
That was definitely that was the part that I found was the most obscure.
Yeah. That's incredibly local.
All of this just kind of points to, a nursery rhyme that tries to dissuade kids from falling into the faults of their parents and peers of getting drunk or falling into debt and so on.
Don't be your drunken gambling dad.
Basically.
Yeah.
It's also become synonymous with Jack in the Box toys.
Yes.
Woo!
That's what I know it from. That's the only thing I've heard it from, actually.
We've all heard these toys. It doesn't matter where you are, you have to have seen it But just in case you come from another planet or have lived on Mars for the last 500 years.
Watch Elf.
Yeah. A Jack in the Box is a toy that has a crank, and as you turn it, it emits a melody. There are different melodies, but the most synonymous one is the Pop Goes the Weasel, because that pop climax allows for the Jack inside to jump out. However, the innocent toy with a small thrill has like a deeper past buried into it. Legend has it that an English prelate is the reason behind this.
What's a prelate?
It's like
That was my question.
it's like
Sounds like a rank.
essentially it's like a rank within like the church. Almost like
church thing.
yeah,
Okay.
almost like a warrior of God.
Oh, that's super creepy.
Kind of like a weird
So
Like
modern
Crusader
paladin
type.
kind of,
Templar,
but not in that entire way kind of thing. It's just basically
Templars were
something.
religious, right?
Yes,
Yeah.
Yeah,
they were
okay,
there.
that's
They
what-
were taking the land away from the heathens that were there,
They did
which
the
is the
Crusades.
Arabic.
Would a Templar be like a modern paladin?
There isn't an equivalent because there's no superpowers. But yeah, also Templars aren't modern at all.
Well,
They started banking.
Yeah, you know what I mean. Like, because I believe paladins aren't just a fantasy thing. It was just someone who was a dedicated warrior of God. Right?
Well, you're thinking more of like that. Yeah, that's where it came from. Tied with like a knight errant. But I don't know. Well, like paladins are not nice people necessarily.
I didn't think so.
Anyways,
Templars weren't exactly nice people either.
that's kind of what I was getting at.
Yeah, so legend has it that this English prelate is actually the basis of why we call it like a Jack in the Box.
Well, that's a Jack.
Sir John Scone was said to have trapped the devil himself, in a boot to protect the village of North Marston. A boot. There are actually depictions of him standing with a boot that he vanquished the devil with.
I think we can't hide the fact of any Canadian thing now, having said that so much. We've given it away, boys.
How fucking drunk and delusional was this man? I've captured the devil, and I did it with this old boot that I found in the river.
I'm guessing he puked in the boot. And it's like, oh, that's
My
definitely
devils
the devil.
are in
That's
there.
definitely-
When you wake up and
definitely-
smell that in the morning, like, oh god, the devil definitely took a shit in there.
Oh god, I think I just gave myself hiccups doing that.
So, anyways, this boot eventually developed into a box. Like over the time, the tail became different.
Unacceptable.
that's how evolution works.
Starts off as a boot, turns into a box.
Yeah, the typical evolutionary chart, and it's just a boot, and then it slowly becomes a bigger boot, and then it gets more square until it's just a box.
The end is when it becomes a ball.
yeah.
And that's how crystal balls are born.
Yeah. It evolved from devil-possessed boots.
Why
And
not?
that's why all those fortune tellers use them, because they have mystical energies in it. So anyways, this devil in a box is actually supported by the French term for the toy, French term for the toy of Jack in the Box.
Oh, so
Diable en boîte, which is literally devil in a box.
you know,
Not exactly subtle.
is it just me, or is Ben going on a theme now? Because last week was the book box, so
We're really getting into the boxes now.
yeah, now we're just gonna have the book shelf
Does that mean the
with
next
the
episode
book
is a
boxes.
creepy fetish thing?
This is all just leading to me talking about Mike Tyson's return to boxing.
I think we want that more.
And then for some reason, Mike Tyson's on our shelf.
How did he get there?
I put him there. I had to trap him there with the bookshelf.
With the bookshelf.
Mike Tyson is the book.
That's why he's stuck in the book box.
Now I'm picturing all the shit we said last week, and just all the shadows is just like, you know, in that typical almost Tweety Bird voice. Hey man, how's it going?
And they all have a terrible face tattoo.
Yeah, it's like, yeah, and it's just Mike Tyson. He's just getting angry, so he starts punching things.
That's where all those welts and bruises were.
Kicking the shit out of people.
So
Hollywood has one, and that's why they have a Mike Tyson as well.
yeah.
All the books are Mike Tyson.
I think we broke Wes.
God, I really wish I could do a Mike Tyson impression. Honestly.
I'm really glad you can't.
Why?
We would be shut down so fast.
Oh, he has a great sense of humor.
Yeah, he's pretty good about
He
things.
does have a sense of humor. Fair
Just
enough.
look at The Hangover. Like, he was all about that.
Look at Mike Tyson's Mysteries.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah,
The
that's
show
fantastic.
that made about himself. Anyway,
Yeah.
let's enough about the book box. Let's go to the
We're talking about
Devil
Jack in the Box now. So, however, besides the whole folklore behind it, it actually was created by a German clockmaker named Klaus. They don't give any last names or anything like that. It was unimportant. His toy did eventually gain notice from nobles when he gave the first ever one that he had made, which was a wooden box with metal edges and a cartoon devil hidden within. And it was gifted to a local prince on his 5th birthday.
So it was always meant to scare the shit out of you.
Yeah.
Okay.
So
that makes a lot of sense, and I assume over time it probably got censored because the devil was more scary.
the term Jack in Britain is actually also a term for the devil.
Oh, really?
Yeah, we'll talk about an entire thing on another character that's known as a Jack. So,
I actually didn't know that.
Know that?
No,
Where do you
no.
think Jack the Ripper came from?
I thought that.
you thought his
Dude
name was
named
Jack?
They never knew. They don't. I don't even think they know it's a guy.
They do. They knew. They have some DNA evidence or something, and they think they found who
DNA
it is.
from then?
Yes, but they think they know who it is, but they also can't prove it because the DNA is too
Degraded.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well,
PCR.
see, I just thought it was just a catchy nickname. I never actually realized it was a devil. It was reference for the devil. Aside from that, I thought Jack the Ripper was infamous for being male because of his targets.
He did.
Being hookers
He went
and
after
stuff.
prostitutes.
Yeah.
Ladies of the night. But no.
I love we had 3 synonyms already.
Yeah. I read a lot about hookers, Yeah, so anyways, all the nobles that saw this prince get gifted with this box decided they wanted some for their children and commissioned Klaus to make them for them.
Became a fad, basically.
Yeah, and then in the mid-18th century, it became a thing where they could mass produce it by taking out certain components and transforming them into some other component that would make it faster for the crank. And then it became a thing that they could just easily pump out there.
Yeah, rather than finely tuned gear or something simpler.
Yeah, and then in the 1930s, it gained fame worldwide and so on. So,
I just gotta say, it's really cool to have a mechanical toy like that of that time era, because I don't think it was very difficult for that sort of toy to exist. And
the fact that it was a German clockmaker who had to make it, you had to be very specialized as a clockmaker.
I mean,
so,
to this day.
Well, now that you mention he's German, it's kind of they're pretty good with that shit.
In all honesty, when I first read this and I saw Klaus, all I could think about was the goldfish from American Dad.
I actually thought of Earthbound.
Nice.
Mother 3, yeah. So I was gonna ask about a brother named Lucas, but
so
let's just pass over that.
Yeah.
I'm sorry.
A reference for
we're gonna get into that, and then it's gonna go deep, and you know what? We'll just end up having an overflow episode in the middle of the episode.
Yeah.
So
We'll just cut back. 2 hours later.
Where were we again? Oh yeah.
Just a lot of snipping and editing, and
I'm sitting there being like, I fucking hate you guys. So anyways, why am I talking about this? Jack in the Boxes in general? Well, what if the devil that was inside that box wasn't just a tale? What if the Jack emerged from the prison that it's trapped within? And what if it took those lessons from that nursery rhyme and decided to make them harsher? That's why we're going to talk about Laughing Jack.
What exactly were the lessons? Just don't be
Don't
you're
be
like your dad,
these
you're
other
a gambler?
don't be a drunk, don't be a gambler,
Okay.
don't be lost in debt. So
And this is an era where there's a debtor's prison, right?
yeah,
So you
At
could go to
first,
prison for owing
I
people.
feel like the rule is just don't be like your dad, because I can't imagine there were too many people who weren't in that state at that time.
Yeah, I don't think it was a nice time.
No, I don't think so either. We have some really shitty eras in our history.
Well, we just have a really shitty history. We're not that nice historically.
As humans, or like our continent here?
Take your pick.
Yeah, fair enough. Okay.
We literally define our history by war.
Ugh, God, yeah.
It's
Anyway,
kind of
you were saying, Ben?
We define it by war?
Yeah, like the major events in our history are typically typified by wars and monarchies.
That's mostly because, though, when you're defeated in a war, your country falls into disarray, and the victor has a huge jump in their own like economy. So then,
yeah, they also rewrite history.
Yeah,
and it's just a major turning point of shittiness.
So,
yes,
Laughing Jack first came to light with an account posted on the internet. The author had a young son named James, who was somewhat of a loner, like just a really quiet kid, didn't have a lot of friends.
Oh, this is modern.
Yep. One day, the author heard James outside talking with someone while she fed their dog. So, it's a single mother. When she calls James in for lunch, he realizes that he's all alone outside. So when she asks who he was talking to, he just replied with, "I was talking to Laughing Jack." So she inquires a little further, and James tells her that Jack is a clown, that he has long hair, a big swirly cone nose, he's got long arms, baggy pants with stripy socks, and he always smiles.
My God, you were telling me about this last week, off the record, because of my play.
Yep.
Yes, I remember this.
So,
you bitch.
She realizes that, in all honesty, it's just because that goddamn nursery rhyme has been stuck in my head this entire time. So I was like, I just got to get this out of here.
Yeah, you can get the fuck out of my head.
So she realizes that this is a concoction of James's imagination. Probably because he's a lonely kid, doesn't have a lot of friends, there's not a lot of kids around.
Not generic groups.
How old was he again?
Probably only about 6 or 7.
Okay.
So she writes it off, and the rest of the day, James goes outside and engages in activities with his newfound imaginary friend. Yeah, I know.
Parenting. Yeah.
Yeah, the imagery, honestly, the kid who has a clown for imaginary friend.
Yeah.
Especially one that always smiles, like, that's just a terrifying thing.
Yeah.
If I realized this was going...
That came way too easily to you.
Thank you.
That's not a compliment.
Thank you. If I known this is the direction, I would have changed that nursery rhyme voice.
Yeah.
All around the mulberry bush,
Thank you for
monkey changed the weasel.
Well, there's a whole other part where you can sing the original one with the mulberry bush.
Ooh.
Alright. So anyway, she thought it was just an imaginary friend.
She?
Yes, the author thought it was just
the mother.
Yeah,
okay.
So she puts James to bed that night after the whole him playing with Laughing Jack all day. And she
God, that
thought,
sounds like masturbating.
I know.
Well, he was playing with Laughing Jack all day.
What are you? I don't want to know. I really don't want to know.
So
consider me traumatized.
So she decided to go to bed, and that night she has a really terrible nightmare.
Yeah,
so
from his vinegar strokes.
Oh, stop it! God, I need to start doing vocal exercises before we start, because this shit's gonna make me choke.
Again, your fetishes are your business.
Stop kink shaming him.
It's not shaming, it's private.
Just keep.
It's not shaming. It's just.
That's the equivalence of those people who are like, I'm okay with gay people if they're not gay in front of me. Like, those are the worst people.
Fair enough.
I don't care what you do in your bedroom. Just don't bring it out here.
Yeah.
To be fair, if you're I think public decency comes into play at a certain point.
They can't see anything.
Anyways.
You can just listen to my dulcet tones.
So,
And imagine vinegar.
in the nightmare, she writes, "It was dark. I was in some kind of rundown amusement park. I was scared and running through an endless field of empty tents, broken down rides, and abandoned game huts. The whole place had a horrible look to it. Everything was black and white. The prized stuffed animals hung from nooses in the game huts.
Jesus.
All with sick grins stitched into their faces."
It's like Silent Hill Carnival.
Yeah.
I'm not gonna lie, I probably know a lot of people who would actually think that was a pretty cool themed amusement park.
Yeah.
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 That sounds like
we
a
know
lot of
messed
fun.
up people.
Yeah, that's fair.
Yeah.
So, it felt like
We're doing this.
Silent Hill themed amusement park, right? So fucking cool.
I'm down.
Yeah.
It felt like the whole park was looking at me, even though there wasn't another living thing in sight. Then suddenly, I began to hear the music play. The sound of Pop Goes the Weasel playing through a squeeze box echoed through the park, and it was hypnotizing. I followed its tune to a circus tent, almost in a trance. Unable to stop my legs from moving forward, it was pitch black, and the only light came from a single spotlight shining on the center of the big top. As I walked towards the light, the music slowed, and I found myself singing along, unable to stop.
All around the mulberry bush, the monkey chased the weasel. The monkey thought it was all in good fun. Pop goes the weasel.
That was a woman.
What?
That was a woman. Can you do it as a woman?
Yeah, well,
So,
sort of.
the music stopped right before the climax, so before the Pop Goes the Weasel. Suddenly, the lights shot on. The intensity of the lights was almost blinding. All I could see was a small, dark silhouette shuffle towards me. Then another. Then another.
Zombies.
Then another. There were dozens of them, all coming towards me. I couldn't move my legs.
Is this like a creepy doll thing?
I couldn't move, my legs were frozen. All I could do was watch as the haunting figures drew near. As they got closer, I could see that they were children.
Yep.
Oh, wow.
As I looked at each one, I noticed that they were horribly disfigured and mutilated. Some had cuts all over their bodies, others were severely burnt, and others were missing limbs. Some were even missing eyes. The children enveloped me, clawing at my flesh, dragging me to the ground, and tearing inside me. As the children tore me apart and I faded away, all I could hear was laughter. Horrible, awful, evil laughter.
It was way too easy.
That was great. So, she awoke in a cold sweat to find that it was morning. As she let the nightmare anxiety pass off of her, because, she freaked out, she then noticed that a handful of James's action figures were on her nightstand. She figured James had gotten up in the morning and placed them there because he had done this before. James later told her that he hadn't placed them there, that Laughing Jack did. Laughing Jack continued to be an excuse in the house. Things would happen and he would blame Laughing Jack for it. James eventually was found to be eating a candy after going missing from his yard when his mother had fallen and taken a nap the one night.
He just wandered off?
He just wandered off and found a candy. When she asked who the candy had come from, he kept saying that Laughing Jack had handed it to him. And she got very, very, very upset with him, to the point that she ended up screaming that Laughing Jack is not real. She then figured that maybe it was one of their neighbors that had given him a candy, and they were friendly neighbors, not like creepers or anything. So she just tried to write it off in her mind that this is where he had got it from. But he insisted that Laughing Jack had given him the candy. So after the commotion settled down, she decided to put James to bed for the night, and then she decided to follow suit. However, she was woken by a loud bang from the kitchen. This is where she made a really grisly discovery that their pet dog had been hung from a light fixture, was sliced open and stuffed with the exact same candies that James was eating.
Oh, God.
Well, that escalated.
It's always the worst when animals are involved.
She scooped up James and went to the neighbors, and they called the police. The police came in and figured that an intruder had come in, made this mess, and then had escaped before when they heard her coming. They wrote off as an intruder and stated that they would send some patrols around, but didn't do much else other than that. Which is a little fucking crazy because...
What are they going to do at the same time?
Yeah. So that day, the author got out James's baby monitors from the garage so that night she could keep an eye on him, and she kept James inside all day and never let him out of her sight. She tucked James in that night and prepared herself for a long night ahead while clutching a large kitchen knife. However, she dozed off. She was awakened by a moan from the baby monitor, and then as she slowly came awake, there was laughter coming from the baby monitor. This was the laugh from her nightmare. She ran into James's room and found him nailed to the wall. Nails were literally piercing his feet and hands. However, his chest was also cut wide open and the organs were hanging there. His eyes and tongue were removed. Worse yet, he was still alive. She could hear him moaning.
What?
She turned and vomited, and that's when her attention was brought to a cackle coming from a corner. A ghost white figure with shoulder-length matted black hair emerged from the shadows. He had piercing white eyes and dark black rings, large, jagged, sharp teeth twisted into a smile. His skin looked like rubber or plastic, and he wore a patchy black and white clown outfit with striped sleeves and socks. His arms hung down past his waist, and he looked like he was a walking, boneless rag doll. She rushed at the monster, but he had vanished with a puff of black smoke, and her knife was driven right into James's heart, killing him.
I mean, that's just a mercy at that point.
Yeah. So following this, the police found her with her son clutched in her arms, and she was sent to a psychiatric asylum for the criminally insane.
Well, they blamed her?
Yep.
Well, in this circumstance, the killer is relatively supernatural. I doubt there is much...
Did they check the knife? Did the knife do the wounds?
This is actually a creepypasta story. So it wasn't a real tale. However,
it would be nice if it did.
Something did emerge from this. There's a lot of accounts that come out from this, like all creepypastas, of Laughing Jack. So, there's a lot of tales that an imaginary friend suddenly emerges for their kids before slicing his victims open and stuffing them full of candy.
Why are imaginary figures often perceived as creepy?
Because it's something you can't see, but the child sees.
It's just unverifiable, so it's creepy.
It's also kind of the aspect of the tulpa I was telling you about the other day. It's like it's manifesting something into reality that can actually interact with it.
Well, that's the creepy
but only one person can
see it.
Can see it. Well, the tulpa is it's not just creepypasta. That's from Tibetan lore.
Yeah. So, in July of 2015, there was a fire reported in Indiana at an apartment complex.
Should we explain what a creepypasta is?
I can do that after this little tale.
Oh, okay. Fair enough. Just in case we don't some of the audience doesn't quite know.
Yeah. So, inside of the apartment, they found Maria Torres stabbed to death.
Practicing.
And this is when it came out that a 12-year-old Indiana girl had murdered Maria Torres, who was her stepmother, and then set the apartment on fire. She was found incompetent to stand trial in the killing, and this was because she claimed that Laughing Jack had instructed her to do this entire deed. This came around the same time as the excuse that two Wisconsin girls had murdered one of their friends to please Slender Man, another creepypasta character, in May of 2014. So the girl was sent to a psychiatric health center and was diagnosed with many conditions, including PTSD and dissociative identity disorder, so DID, which used to be multiple personality disorder. So that's how that whole thing just kind of came to an end, was they never held her accountable, as far as I could find.
Well, how old was she again? 12?
12 when she did this. So to what you were saying, a creepypasta is essentially a story that was written online as kind of like an urban legend, and then is posted on a bunch of forums. And then people take these ideas and run with them and make more stories based off of it, which is what makes it into an even bigger urban legend.
Now, why pasta?
Because it comes from the root of like copy pasta, where people would copy something and then send it out, and that became a term used by...
like copy and paste.
Yeah.
Oh, that makes sense.
So,
now, one thing I wanted to ask. You've mentioned that Slenderman was originally a creepypasta, but I've actually heard that tale quite a few times outside of it. Did it originate?
So it originated in 2000 and I believe 8 from an actual thing where they were trying to make a new modern urban legend character and make it into like a monster that would be a more modern day monster, and that's when this person photoshopped these pictures of Slenderman and then linked it to some old Germanic things that like Germanic texts, and then tried to make claims that these related together, but they don't actually relate together. We'll have to do an entire episode on Slenderman himself, but
oh, okay.
What's the value of this? Just to scare the crap out of people?
Yeah, and
well, it's like ghost stories, right? They're just fun to sort of tell.
And it's kind of... And it obviously causes chaos in the world. Look at that 12-year-old. And then look at those two that murder their friend because it would please Slenderman. They actually believed that that whole thing. So, why does Jack do what he did? And how is he associated with the Jack in the Box?
Like the original boot guy?
No.
Oh, Jack.
Yeah, it's
like the box itself. Jack. Like, why did I even explain that whole thing?
Okay.
Well... Somebody wrote out an origin story for Laughing Jack, and it is quite a tale. So we're going to dive a little into it.
Oh, shit!
Yeah. So, it's Christmas Eve, and we're in London, England.
Of course.
You know, there's other Londons in the world, though. And it's the 1800s.
There are other Londons?
Yes, there's other Londons.
No.
The States has every city in it. There's a Paris in the States.
No.
I think they have a mini Eiffel Tower, too.
Fuck off. No. This is all... You're lying.
Yes.
Lying.
So, while Wes, picks his mind off the floor and puts it back together from that just bombshell.
It will never be picked up.
It was lost a long time ago.
So, London, England, 1800s.
In London, America.
In Middle Dakota.
Middle Dakota. That's where it is, obviously.
So,
there's this many Parises in the States.
It's Christmas time, and Christmas time we normally expect gifts. You know, it's a really joyous holiday. People are getting together. It's a really cheerful holiday. Well, not for 7-year-old Isaac. I almost said 70-year-old, and that would have been amazing.
I just like the name Isaac.
Yeah. So
7-year-old Isaac. Oh, my name is Isaac.
Why is he German?
You said he was German.
No, this is London, England.
Oh, well, you know what? Too late. He's German now. Oh, I'm little Isaac.
Thanks for joining us.
I live in England for no reason.
So, little Isaac was a sad child.
His reactions are kind of what's getting me.
They're amazing.
Yeah.
But yeah, so he was a sad child, didn't have any friends. His mother was very, very cruel to him, kept him mostly locked in his room, unless she had him come down to do chores or to go through homeschool assignments.
Like most non-German parents.
Yeah. And his dad was a drunken, abusive father. And would come home, and many times Isaac would come down and find his mother, after hearing the commotion upstairs, having a bunch of bruises and stuff like that on her face and her body. So he was just a general piece of shit. Beat his wife, beat his kids. Well, his one kid. And
you almost said that to the rhythm of hide your wife, hide your kids.
Yeah. So his room...
I know you're so lost, sweetie.
So his room was actually like a very cold and dusty attic. So all he wanted was a present, but he knew he wasn't going to get it because his family was poor, and they don't really care about him anyways. So, on this night, Isaac had a guardian angel. And the guardian angel decided that Isaac was a good enough kid that he would create a special gift for Isaac. So Isaac awoke and found a little box, and it was brightly colored, freshly painted, and it looked very pristine, and it had a crank on the side of it. It was a little jack-in-the-box. Isaac never seen a toy like this. All his toys were broken, torn apart. He always had hand-me-down clothes, hand-me-down toys, anything they could find in the garbage, anything that came from other families that were getting rid of it. So, he kind of cherished his toy, so he decided to try it out. So he turned the crank, and then when it went through the melody, pop goes the weasel. It hit the pop goes the weasel, and he waited for the jack to pop out, but nothing happened. So he expected that this thing was just broken, so he put it aside.
Like most of his toys.
Yeah. So that's when this box suddenly rumbled, and out popped a large character with fire red hair, a very colorful outfit, nice, colorful, swirled cone-like nose, and he basically told Isaac that his name was Laughing Jack and that he'd be his best friend from here on out.
There was a split second where you could have easily went,
And that
Isaac?
was Michael Jackson.
Yeah, you could have been, Isaac, I'm Pennywise. Pennywise the dancing clown.
Oh, God.
Pennywise, meet Isaac. Isaac, meet Pennywise. Now let's go in the sewers.
So, when this Technicolor clown popped out, he did announce, come one, come all, whether big or small, to see the best clown of them all, the one and only Laughing Jack in the Box. So, the two were best friends, and they spent the rest of the day playing until he heard his mom call out for him to come down and do his homeschooling chores, which it's Christmas, and he has to do homeschooling.
Homeschooling chores, meaning we're just abusing this child to do our chores.
Basically.
God.
So, when he's down there, he's telling his mother, Isaac's telling his mother, all about this Jack in the Box, like Laughing Jack up in his room. Well, he wants to...
Look, I got a cool thing. You should shut up.
Yeah, and he's 7 years old. He's excited. So, he finally pesters her enough for her to come upstairs and check, but when they open the door, there's nothing. There's no Jack. There's no box. It's just his room. So his mom straight off hauls back and slaps him in the face.
Really?
Sorry. His delivery on that was so sudden, like, and then she just hauls back and slaps him in the face.
I guess it's unexpected for you.
Yeah, like, I expected him to get hit, and then he said, and then she just hauls back. Like, I thought she was hauling back to the kitchen or whatever, and then he's like, hauls back and slaps him in the face. Like, what?
Well, she also tells them that, you stupid, insolent child, how dare you lie to me with such childish idiocy? Who would want to be friends with a useless worm such as you? You shall remain in your room for the rest of the evening, and you shall receive no dinner.
On
now,
Christmas.
What do you say, you ungrateful wretch? And he replied, trying not to break down, thank you, ma'am. She then left.
Who says insolent child? Did anyone ever say that?
Yeah. What's another?
Who knows?
Really? That sounds so cartoonish to me.
So, Isaac's there in his room crying after his mom leaves. So he has no dinner, and she now thinks that he's lying. Well, that's when Jack emerges and asks, what's wrong, kiddo? And Isaac explains that he wasn't there, so his mom didn't believe him, and that's when Laughing Jack explains that he can't let other people see him, otherwise he'll have to go away. So, Isaac accepts this, and they go back to being best friends. They play for the rest of the night. They have a good time. This goes on for a few months. Until one day, Isaac finishes some chores early and manages to go outside. So him and Laughing Jack are outside playing, and they decide to play pirates. And that's when they spot the neighbor's cat in the yard. So Isaac yells out, "We got an enemy spy off the starboard bow," which then Jack exclaims that he'll get him and wraps the cat in his arms that have just stretched out almost like Mr. Fantastic.
Oh, he hasn't moved. He's just...
Yep, they just stretched all the way out. And they begin to coil around the cat. And as the two get more and more excited and more into this game, the arms just keep coiling and squeezing until finally there's a crack and the cat stops moving. Jack is completely devastated by this and drops the cat to the ground. Starts murmuring that he's sorry, he didn't know what was going to happen, all this stuff. But that's when Isaac just bursts out laughing with an exclamation of, "I guess cats don't have 9 lives."
Oh, God.
Yeah.
It wasn't going to get nice.
Well, no, I know. Actually, just for a note, when we said Isaac's mother left him in his room crying, I couldn't help but imagine the binding of Isaac.
Well, that led into a real thing. So, Isaac and Jack then realize that they're going to get in trouble for this dead cat in the yard. So Isaac takes the shovel and pitches the cat back into the neighbor's yard. Dead. Well, later that night, he hears his dad come rumbling in. And his dad calls out for him. So Isaac goes downstairs. Jack hears some arguing. Then Isaac comes back upstairs. Isaac was being sent away to a reform school because of the dead cat and didn't believe that Laughing Jack had done this because they don't believe Laughing Jack exists. He's not allowed to bring any of his possessions with him.
I mean, it still might be a win considering.
So,
yeah, actually, that's a good point.
That's when Jack asks Isaac, "Well, what am I supposed to do?" Because they're supposed to be best friends and they're supposed to be together forever, but he can't bring anything with him, including the box. So Isaac asks Jack to just wait in the box till he comes back and says, "I'll be back for you as soon as I can." So Jack goes into the box. Isaac goes off to reform school, and the years start to pass. And as the years pass by, Jack is stuck in this box. The box begins to weather, starts to lose color, and so does Jack. Jack's lost his smile. He has no one to talk to. He has nothing but loneliness, and his colors start to bleed away from him. He starts to become literally a monochromatic clown. Just sitting in this box, waiting.
So crazy from isolation.
Yeah, and the only things that he can hear are Isaac's parents arguing and the beatings that befall Isaac's mother when the father comes home. And he knows it's the father because of these heavy boot stomps. One night he hears the boot stomps come in, he hears the argument, and then he hears Isaac's mother scream, and then the scream is abruptly stopped. Well, he then hears constables show up, and they take away Isaac's dad, and he is hung within the week.
Oh, good.
So,
I mean, inevitable.
Yeah.
I wouldn't say good.
Well, 13 years had passed at this point, and Isaac...
How long is his school?
Well, he's out of the school by now. He just hasn't returned. Okay. But Isaac, being their only son, has inherited the house. But he kind of left it to sit and rot for a little while, until the one day, Isaac meets a woman at a bar and decides to bring her back to the house. So Jack can hear these footprints, and he hears Isaac.
He hears footprints?
Footsteps, sorry. Ha 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 ha.
Shut up, Wes. Yeah, okay.
So
never said
he hears these footsteps, and he hears the girl giggling, and he hears Isaac's voice, and he recognizes Isaac's voice even though it's changed because now Isaac is a man. And he can see what's going on outside of the box as well. He can see what's going on inside the room. And Isaac brings the woman up to his room. Now, Isaac starts to make some sexual advances of the woman, and at first he's kissing her, and then he's like trying to like feel her breast, and she pushes him away. They're kissing again, and then he tries to like bring his hand up her skirt. She pushes him away.
This is the sexy part of the show.
Yeah. Well, finally he reaches up her skirt, and the woman decides that she's had enough and she wants to leave. And that's when she knocks over a glass while also refusing Isaac. And Isaac loses his shit. And then beats her over the head with a candlestick. And Jack watches this and thinks to himself, what an interesting game. So, Isaac at this point has been employed as a furniture upholsterer. So he builds furniture and knows how to upholster and tan skin into leather. So Isaac goes home, gets his stuff, and starts moving everything into the house while also getting his tools.
There.
Yeah. And he then stretches the girl's skin into leather. And then he builds a frame out of the girl's bones and stretches this leather over this chair. Well, Laughing Jack watches this whole thing and finds it amazing. Well, he then watches as Isaac gets more victims and gets a little more creative. He removes the mattress from the bed and adjusts this frame into almost like a shackle-like device for him to be able to just hold his victims forever, like for as long as he wants until he's done with them. And he would start collecting people like prostitutes or even just children that pissed him off on the street, bring them back, torture, rape, kill them, and then make their bodies into furniture in the house. And Jack finally has a smile back on his face as he watches these games happening. Because Jack is programmed to like anything that Isaac likes.
Ooh.
So,
for some reason, the Jack in the box is now an AI. So
Okay.
He's programmed to like what Isaac likes.
So, Jack is still stuck in the box.
Yes.
Until the one day, one of the victims' bodies hitting the floor knocks this box off the shelf and it hits the ground. Isaac then realizes that he hasn't seen this box in ages, and now it's worn away, the colors are gone, it's dusty. Well, he decides to turn the crank. And as he turns the crank, the song plays out. It goes through. And then the pop goes the weasel happens. Nothing happens with the box. So Isaac throws it into the corner of the room. And as he prepares to dissect this new body, that's when he hears a really grave Isaac come out of the corner.
Wait, a grave Isaac?
Like a grave call for Isaac.
Oh. Isaac!
Yeah.
Still sounds like Jock Rock to me.
I have no idea what you're talking about.
So, Isaac turns around and sees it, and he can't believe it. He thought that this was all, that Laughing Jack was not real, that it was just something that was part of his imagination of a lonely child. Probably because the reform school had kind of beat that into him, along with this sociopathic, murderous rage.
You understand that, right?
Yeah, actually.
Okay, good.
So,
Glad we got your input.
That is on the output.
Jack comes out of the corner, and his arms start to stretch out just like when he stretched out to grab the cat. And it coils around Isaac as Isaac slowly protests and starts squeezing. And Jack starts explaining that he's been alone all this time, and he's been wanting to play nothing but games, and he finally was shown these beautiful games from Isaac, and he can't wait to play them with Isaac. And that's when Isaac feels his ribs crack. Well, Jack lets him drop to the floor, and then puts him up on the shackle device. He then rips open Isaac's stomach and pulls out the intestines and wears them like boas. Ha.
It's a fashion sense.
But
Celebrate.
Why not?
Freedom.
then he takes it and starts basically twisting them into balloon animals.
Oh, that's a real good game.
So with the next trick, he reaches deep into Isaac's stomach, yanks out one of his kidneys.
I thought you were going to say he pulls out a rabbit.
Ta-da!
Ta-da! No, but seriously, here's your kidney.
Yeah.
I mean, you couldn't help but be impressed.
I know,
It was
right?
like, okay, that was kind of cool.
And-
Okay, I'll give you that one, but seriously, stop killing me.
And so,
I mean, finished killing me at that point.
Yeah.
so Isaac's starting to die at this point. So,
It's starting.
like,
I mean,
really
there's no
starting, like, he's
sympathy.
starting to drift off into death. So, Laughing Jack exclaims, "Feeling tired already? Why, we're nearly at the grand finale. This ought to perk you right up." And he takes the needles that Isaac would use for the upholstery and jams them into Isaac's retina and then injects the embalming liquid right into the sockets.
Ooh.
He then wiggles and twists that needle around a little bit just to add to that. And Isaac is back to consciousness for the moment. And then with a sinister chuckle, he yanks the needle out and pulls the eyeball with it. So, Jack then says, "And now that I have your full attention," and he takes a long, crooked index finger and pokes the hole into Isaac's stomach. And then Isaac watches as his mouth slowly stretches and a torrent of cockroaches starts crawling out of the clown's mouth and starts to fill Isaac's chest.
I like that line. Now that I have your attention...
Are cockroaches carnivorous? I don't think
Yes,
so.
they're
Oh, they are?
both-
Okay.
Yeah,
So they will eat us.
So Isaac feels them all
They'll
scurrying.
eat anything.
Yeah, they'll eat. They're scavengers and they're carnivorous, so they're
Are they carnivorous or omnivores?
omnivores.
Yeah.
So.
Carnivorous would be the relevant part there.
Yeah.
So Isaac is inches from death when his captor kneels beside him and speaks into his ear and goes, "It's been a blast, kiddo, but it looks like our time together is about up. No need for tears, though, because I plan to spread my friendship with all the lonely kids in the world." And just like that, Laughing Jack reached into Isaac's chest and yanked out his still beating heart. So, that's how Laughing Jack became Laughing Jack, basically by watching Isaac torture and kill other people.
Wonderful! These are
This whole
great
creepypasta
games.
thing seems unnecessarily dark.
Oh, yeah. That's the point.
Yeah, but why? Like, why? What's the interest? I guess this.
Morbid curiosity and, like... honestly, everybody has some weird interest when it comes to fantasy. There's some sort of weird...
I guess it's fantasy if you have no reference point.
Yeah, exactly.
Okay, because that's why I find this horrifying.
We can definitely talk about creepypastas in the overflow.
Yeah.
But
Yeah.
yeah.
So,
So, that's Laughing Jack in the jar, and your Joker voice, and...
Has there ever been a case of someone actually using like an entire human body for furniture? I've only heard of that.
Ed Gein.
Sorry?
Ed Gein.
So there was?
Yes. The one that the Texas Chainsaw Massacre and Buffalo Bill from Silence of the Lamb was based off of. He's a really famous serial killer and grave robber.
Cool. He got around.
cool. Got around.
What am I gonna say?
Yeah, I know, but honestly, the lack of things to say is what makes it funny. It's like,
Okay, that exists.
So,
cool.
yeah, we'll eventually have to talk about Ed Gein, I guess, because as much as I try to stay away from the more well-known known ones, you guys don't know a lot of the well-known ones, so it's kind of interesting to see the reactions. I'm sure you know Ed Gein.
I know them all.
What?
There's nothing been a surprise here. This is all show. This is my theater training.
You actually write the scripts, and I just
exactly. In fact, there is only one person. It's me, right, doing this whole thing. I'm just really good at voices.
That explains why the admin sucks.
Exactly. See, I'm really good at speaking like that. Like I have multiple races around me. You ever notice we're never talking at the same time? That's because it's just me. It's all at the same time.
I think you could project your voice to someone else, though.
Exactly. See, look at what I just did. I made a really good point to myself.
Said an amazing segue earlier in the show. That was all you.
That was all me.
So, to wrap up, follow us on Instagram at BAChaosJar, and Twitter at BAChaosJar, and at I'm Glad You Asked _.
And that is my podcast, which is technically both are my podcasts because this is all me. But if you ask me random questions, I'll give you random answers. Have some fun, enjoy, and whatnot, and all that jazz.
I want to make a quick request, since everybody's doing art things. If anybody knows how to make a Jack in the Box, have Bender come out with the dagger from the suicide box. That would be amazing.
Oh my god. I'm down.
Yeah.
So, donate the money to Patreon so we can get that.
I might make it.
Yeah, I might make it as AT token. Yeah, I'm so good at this. All my characters on the show.
In Middle Dakota.
In Middle Dakota, Canada Town, USA.
Anyways, so, yeah, donate money. We'll read your name out at the end of the show. Notice there aren't any names at the end of the show. It's because nobody's donated so far.
Donate! I need money!
You can also make the donations via PayPal. It's all in the show notes. And that's it. Catch us on the Overflow. You'll get early access if you donate the $5 level on Patreon. Otherwise, it comes out after a month. So,
yeah, donate money to me, because you know how expensive these voices are? It takes years of practice. Anyway, you know what? I'll talk about it in the Overflow. Have a good night.